All right, so in the 2.7 live stream, we got a lot to talk about. We have, of course, the brand new character Yelan, which is going to be coming out in 2.7, who is the big waifu with the armpits that everyone wants to know about. And of course, she has a very interesting kit that is going to be reliant on super awesome characters that everyone wants to play, like Hu Tao, Raiden Shogun, and other characters. So there are some people that are very, very excited about this character. And of course, the character Kuki Shinobu that was, of course, introduced as a character that is going to be an electro healer that we need to talk about going forward for certain team compositions, and if she's going to add enough to the meta to, of course, be a character that you want to summon for. So in this video, we're going to be going over those details and seeing, of course, talking about Itto and Xiao as well, and talking about the total breadth of what characters are going to be worthwhile to summon for or not. If you aren't aware of the banner order for 2.7, the first banners, of course, are going to be for phase 1. Yelan is going to be up with Xiao, and of course, there's going to be, of course, Itto. I'll be discussing these two characters briefly, and if these characters are good or not. I like both of them, and I'll be talking about them for free-to-play, budget players, etc. But we'll be talking about their kits and if they're worth. Now, the first thing that we got to talk about for Yelan is she is going to have a brand new weapon, which is called the Aqua Simulacra. Now, I know a lot about this weapon already, and it is going to be a very strong weapon for, of course, her and some other characters in Genshin, but I can't really give details. But of course, you know, if you know, you know, it is quite good for certain characters coming out. Now, Yelan as a character is a brand new character that's being introduced into the area of Leeway. And because she's going to be introduced to this, a very fun character, I think she's going to have some kind of introduction in 2.7 and the Archon quest there that's going to be related to Xiao. And as a character, she is a very waifu character. And of course, there's the armpit action that many people were talking about. But what most people were interested in, of course, that are not, of course, major shrimps, are going to be the elemental skill and elemental burst that have very interesting mechanics. First off, the elemental skill can chain between enemies in a very interesting fashion and allows you to go into dash state, whereas the elemental burst is a coordinated attack. Now, it has been widely speculated this elemental burst ability is going to be very similar to Xiao. For the actual gameplay of Yelan, we saw the elemental skill where he's running through enemies, and this elemental skill is really interesting. She also has a charge attack mechanic that I don't think you're going to implement too much. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be a very useful mechanic because there's no extra energy generation or anything like that on it. Maybe just as a small little bit of damage if you wanted to use her. But typically, I feel like Yelan's going to be a character that you're just going to go on with elemental skill and elemental burst. Now, I did see this on the live stream a few times. We're not actually quite sure on this, but the elemental skill generation may be 3 particles, but it may also be 4 particles because I've seen splits between the two, and they just might be overstacked, but it could be 4 as we're seeing here, just as a consistent basis. But if it is 4 elemental particles, that is a really, really strong elemental skill ability for energy generation, because that's going to be as strong as Xiao. Next up, we have the elemental burst, which is the big old dice move. It's going to have a big burst damage ability that's going to happen right away. And after that, it's going to be a coordinated attack that's going to land probably off normal attack or something like that. Now, if we talk about Xiao as a character, he is a character with a few problems. The number 1 problem of this character, of course, is zoom impact. Okay, as you can see, I'm going to go be the max distance on my camera. I'm as further away as possible. I'm going to use my elemental burst ability, and what happens is zoom, and then you stay zoomed in. This requires you to mouse wheel back out, and of course that gets really, really annoying after a certain point in time. Now, other characters that use elemental burst do not actually have that zoom type mechanic, as you can see here, and you can still zoom in afterward or zoom out as needed. There are some characters that, of course, zoom in an elemental burst, but then zoom back out immediately, while Xiao does not, which is super annoying. So if you did want to play Yelan just to get rid of that zoom impact style mechanic, where you're up the character's butt crack the entire time, while constantly spamming scroll wheel backwards, that would be a great character to summon for Yelan. But in seriousness, the actual things about Xiao that really are awesome, of course, are the Hydra application as well as the Hydra damage being dealt. Looking at Xiao, when you look at the rain swords that are around his character, if you're within this rain sword radius or a little bit about right about here or so on the radius, you're able to apply Hydra to anybody within this range. And if you're applying Hydra to them, then they can constantly take damage. So if I walk over to this treasure over here, if I just stand next to him, you see there's nothing there. But if I just get a little bit closer, say about here, I start applying Hydra to him, and he will constantly be applied with Hydra while in that range. Now, because that happens, you can use characters to create vaporizes against him, and that will, of course, get you more damage. Now, with Xiao, of course, every time you're using his elemental burst ability, which is going to be Guazor Rain Carter, you're going to do lots of amounts of damage, which are also going to do Hydro application on top of that, which allows for more vaporizes to happen. This is very, very prevalent in Hu Tao teams, and then one of the major reasons she does a lot of damage. Another alternative, of course, is using Hu Tao and Xiao as well as Yelan on the same team, but giving you a large amount of damage boost to one team while having 2 Hydro characters. This has only one problem, of course, and that, of course, has Hydro Resonance. And Hydro Resonance, of course, does absolutely nothing, but it actually increases the healing that comes into your characters. Now, this can be a problematic thing for Hu Tao teams because, of course, Hu Tao does not want to be above 50%. If you don't know why, it's because for the Staff of Homa, one below 50%, as well as one of her Ascension talents that allows her to get more damage below 50%. So Yelan actually would fit as a really, really good 4th in this team. The other major reason to summon for Yelan is for 2 separate teams. As a placeholder right now, I'm going to use Mona as a placeholder for Yelan. And one of the most common teams that people want to run in the Spiral Abyss is going to be a Hu Tao team as well as a Raiden national team. And I'm going to use Yelan as an example here, which will allow me to use Raiden, Shogun, and Bennett. Now, this is being the most popular team in Spiral Abyss, of course, being Xiao in this spot. But of course, if we have Yelan, now a lot of people can be running 2 separate teams that allow for the Raiden national team to be run, as well as running a Hu Tao team on the other side. So many people are considering something for Yelan, just so you have 2 versions of Xiao. So we're running very, very popular teams with very popular characters. Now, the counterpoint to this, of course, if you didn't summon for Yelan and you did summon for Kazuha, of course, you have no problem on the conflict of your team, and you actually do have a team that actually works out just about the same in damage. The only problem is that you're actually suffering on enemies that are weak to Hydro. So, of course, this is more of a team that's more Pyro-centric because it is an overload-based team versus using an mono damage. Now, of course, as the 4th character on the team, many people do choose Sucrose on the first side, or, of course, using characters like Albedo or Rosaria, or depending on the actual character in need for this last slot. But of course, getting Yelan would allow for both teams to be run, but of course using different variants of these teams and give you more options. Another major problem of having only one Xiao, of course, is that on a team you would that would actually kind of want to run a taser style composition, kind of like the Sucrose Beidou official team that you see here. You would not be able to get that done because of having only one Xiao, because running Hu Tao on one side and having a taser comp on the other side was a near impossibility. Now, going forward, this will actually be possible if you do summon for Yelan. But before you do summon for Yelan, and I wanted to mention this about Kuki Shinobu, is she is a character that is a Hydro Electro Healer, which has been sorely missing from Genshin Impact. And this allows for an entire new composition to be actually built, which is really, really awesome because many people who are Tartaglia mains and Ayato mains can actually run this composition with no issue. Now, if I do, let's just use Lisa as my placeholder right now for Kuki Shinobu. Let's just say this is the brand new version of the Taser composition. You can now use your Tartaglia as a pseudo driver or your Ayato, whatever you want to do, as a new team that you can run for your new style of taser composition, because now you'll actually have an electro healer, which will fulfill the last role in the team, which will give you the actual healing that you need as well as the energy recharge you need from the electro resonance on the team and give you an overall good function. So if you wanted the more budget version of what you could go for without going for Yelan while actually getting an improvement to your team compositions in a 2.4 or 2.7, then you may not want to go for a Yelan. You might want to consider, if you're going more for taser, then you should probably consider going for Kuki Shinobu or Shinobu in 2.7 versus going for Yelan. Now, if you're a little bit wondering about damage for the 2 characters between the 2, I don't really know the damage differences between the 2 because it's going to depend on Hydro application for the team compositions as well as the passive damage increases. But the major thing that I saw that was going to be a major issue for Yelan is going to be the one thing that was not mentioned in the live stream that she does not have, and that's the thing that Xiao does have, which is very, very effective, and which will not affect the 2 teams that were aforementioned, but it is something that is very important. It's called the interrupt resistance that Xiao has. This is probably the most important part of his kit for other characters like Yoimiya or any other auto attackers that are going to come out that do not have interrupt resistance. This is a very, very important part of his kit that actually makes him very viable. And because he has that, allows for our normal attacking characters not get interrupted as often, which really helps out. Now for the other 2 characters, we got Itto and Goru, and I'm going to be running that in this course in this video. So as a character, Itto kind of suffers from one major problem as a character, and that problem is reliant on having just no grouping Geo character. If you're fighting a large amount of enemies like this with Itto, you can see that the clear problem that you do have a lot of the time, of course, is not going to be having a grouping character to go along with your overall damage. So even if you eat these guys for 1,000,000 damage, they're not going to be grouped up by your Geo character. The major issue on that for Geo characters is that you can't swirl Geo. And because there's no way of swirling Geo, there's no way of grouping Geo characters to get another damage booster on a team. So you're stuck with using a Venti, but you can't get an elemental particle up on Venti to get energy recharge for Geo, so he doesn't even become effective as far as the character goes. You can't use other characters like Sucrose gross because you can't use elemental mastery with Geo, so you kind of use a dead stick as far as Itto goes. So that's the only real thing that you're missing on Itto, is he's really bad versus large amounts of enemies, or enemies of course that have Geo resistances. And other than that, he's an amazing character, very, very neutral damage, not getting beaten by a large amount of things. But there are a lot of Geo resistant enemies in Genshin currently, so when we move to Sumeru, I think he might be a lot better, because currently we're just in a phase where he's just not as good, but he does do the job every single abyss. All right, and then the last character we're going to talk about is, of course, going to be Xiao, who is going to be the primo character that's going to be the story-focused character for the next patch for 2.7. And this character, as a free-to-play character account, of course, if you're using his overall kit, is not very good with a Black Lift Spear. So if you do have a Staff of Homer or any other 5-star weapon, he gets a lot better. However, even with the 5-star weapon, this character overall needs a lot of help. And one of the characters I was most excited for, which would be Hazo, is going to be coming out. That is going to have a supposed support kit for Xiao, but I've seen the leaks, so I'm sad. But I wanted to give you one last consideration for any Xiao main out there, and this is going to be pertaining to Yelan. Now, one of the things about Xiao as overall kit right now is that he is a character that has an entirely attack percentage base set on his brand new set. If you wonder what my ratio is, if I use the right artifacts. On the brand new set right now, I'm still working on my crit rate, trying to get a little bit more, but I'm about 64 to 50 right now with 1/3 energy recharge. I actually been trying a lot to get a Xiao set going for my free-to-play account, and of course, I do work really hard on free-to-play trying to get good artifacts, and I only ended up getting a couple while using a really good offset piece. Now, this, of course, is on the C0 Xiao, and I didn't fully max out the Triple Crown Xiao because, you know, I didn't really care that much. But going forward for Xiao, I'm going to see how much damage I can get on him. But one of the characters I'm most excited for him about is actually going to be Yelan. Now, in the 2.7 live stream, they mentioned that Yelan is going to be a character that does boost percentage damage based on your entire team as a supporting character. And one of the things that you can actually utilize in a Xiao team very effectively, since he has more attack percentage now, is going to be a percentage damage buff. Now, if you are one of those players like myself on a free-to-play account with a Xiao without Zhongli, I can tell you this with experience: Xiao without Zhongli feels like a wet blanket. It doesn't actually do a lot of damage, even though he's in for like 60,000 damage per plunge. It isn't enough damage because you're using all your boosters just to make him hit that 60,000, and the other damage that's being dealt on the outside is not really enough. So not having the extra damage boosters while also taking away your Bennett, your other characters on the team, it just doesn't provide enough damage for an overall composition, and you feel kind of lackluster. So almost every Xiao man out there does use Zhongli if they do have the option for it, and on every single composition, because he does provide that Animo Shred that Xiao sorely needs, because enemies have a large enough resistance amount to get rid of. All right, so just using Pyro Resonance and no other boosters, let's see how much damage the Xiao does. He's hitting for 32,000 on low plunge, 44,000 on the high plunge, and as things ramp up, of course, with the new set, we're starting at 37 on the low plunges here, and then on the high plunges, we're hitting, I don't know, 50k. And then actually crit, because 64% crit chance. Still working the crit rate. So because you get all that damage and you get about you move your damage up pretty high and you get a large amount of attack, that becomes a much better situation. Now, if you're able to break 50,000 damage plunges without a Zhongli or a Bennett being added to your team composition, all you're adding is a little bit extra attack percentage. One of the things that would be very helpful, of course, is getting extra percentage damage on top of it. So if I add on, let's just say, a Bennett buff here, and then we're adding on a Mona buff here, we add them into our Xiao to see how much damage we're going to start doing here, and I started moving my damage up to like 80,000 damage plunges. Now, a character like Yelan will also be able to trigger on the simultaneous attacks, because if Yelan triggers on normal attack, at the end of a short Xiao plunge, every single time here, you drop a normal attack at the very bottom. And you drop, since you're dropping a normal attack at the very bottom of your plunge, that will allow you to, of course, get your auto attacks in for Yelan. Xiao can still do a sizable amount of damage without a character like Zhongli, but it will, of course, be much better. Now, one of the characters, of course, that I was mentioning that I really wanted with Xiao, of course, was going to be Yelan, because I would get a significant percentage damage boost on Xiao while also being able to use Zhongli on the same team. And by using two characters together without a healing character on top of it, I may actually be able to utilize the Staff of Homa a little bit better and be able to use a shielder to block most of the damage that's coming in, as well as utilize the second passive on Staff of Homa. Without Geo Resonance, I'm actually able to get about 2,400 attack on my Xiao without anything else popped on him as well. The 2885 attack. And because we can get all the way up to 2885 attack with no resonances whatsoever, I can get, since we have almost 3,000 attack on a Xiao with the Zhongli on top of it, I can throw a Noblesse buff and Millilith buff on top of it to get a pretty significant amount of attack on top. If I just add the Noblesse buff from Bennett, I'm moving up to 2600. And because Xiao has such a large amount of base attack, you can be able to utilize characters like Yelan with him pretty effectively to get extra percentage damage on him while also using the coordinated attack. Now the question is that I'm going to have going forward is I wonder which character is going to be better as a supporting character for Xiao. It's going to be Bennett or of course Yelan. Now my thought process is that Bennett's going to provide a bigger damage for the Xiao plunges, but what about the coordinated attack and damage that's on top of it? Because Yelan's also going to be boosting Xiao in some way because of the percentage damage add that she's going to add to him. I'm wondering if the percentage damage add for Xiao is actually going to provide enough damage to make Xiao even better than if you could use with Bennett. And the other question to ask, of course, is if the coordinated attack and the percentage damage added together will, of course, be a bigger damage boost than what you can actually receive from Bennett for a character like Xiao, which would then, in essence, make Yelan one of the best characters in the game, of course, but doesn't heal. So I'm really curious about Yelan for a Xiao support. I also was doing some energy calculations yesterday to see what you would get while Xiao was on eating every particle that was on the field from every single character and try to figure out if there was going to be good energy generation. And I actually did find out that Yelan's particle energy generation was, of course, larger than Bennett's particle generation because of the increase in particles, but it wasn't going to provide a significant amount of energy increase. So I'm unclear. I'm going to be doing some testing on Xiao Yelan teams because I'm actually most curious about that composition in general. But that's going to do for this video. My name's Sekapoko. Thanks for watching. This one was a little bit longer. I got a lot more to say on Yelan that I want to talk about. I want to talk about it in the coming weeks, and we're going to talk about different team compositions going forward. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Have a great day, guys.